It is often argued by legislators that the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Law, or otherwise known as the Pangilinan Law, as amended by Republic Act number 10630, is anti-discipline. Often they would say that it encourages young people to violate the law, and it even supports criminals who utilize children in the commission of offenses, knowing the latter do not incur criminal liability. So their oft-repeated proposal is to lower the age of criminal responsibility from the current 15 years of age to something lower, 13, 11, and even as low as 9 years old. So and it's no secret that the President himself and his allies in both houses of Congress are advocating for the lowering of the age of criminal responsibility. So my first question, Madam Sponsor, is what is the institutional position of the DSWD on the resurgence again of the calls for lowering of the age of the criminal responsibility?
Mr. President, I first would like to agree with the DSWD in opposing lowering the minimum age of criminal responsibility. It should be retained at above 15 years old. And upon consultation with their social workers and with child rights advocates, the following were identified as key reasons why the minimum criminal age of responsibility should not be lowered and must be retained above 15 years old. And if I might quote, the proposal to lower the MACR to 9 years fails to consider scientific proof on children's brain development. Empirical evidence shows that the human brain continues to develop until the age of 21 years. Despite their adult appearance, teenagers' brains are not yet fully developed. The prefrontal cortex, should I just read the whole thing, is developed last. What we're saying is that, yes, there could be the propensity to engage in risky behavior at the time, and the brain is not yet fully developed. It is not advised to subject a young children to a criminal process like adults. And lowering the age to 9 years is inconsistent with the Philippine government's obligations under the Convention on the Rights of the Child that requires that state parties should seek to promote the establishment of laws, procedures. I could go on and read this whole
No need, Madam
memo.
Sponsor.
Yes.
I laud the position of the DSWD on this very contentious issue. And I perfectly agree with the arguments raised by the DSWD as an institution against that proposal to lower the MACR. Now, the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Council, or the JJWC, given this institutional, very clear and encouraging institutional position of the DSWD, has JJWC undertaken initiatives to, for example, hold dialogues with policymakers who either do not understand or misunderstand the objective of the law, why the MACR is pegged at 15 years of age? In other words, are there initiatives on the part of the JJWC to educate our duty bearers so that they stop calling for such a move?
Yes, Mr. President. In fact, the Secretary has written a memo to the President. They had also appeared in the House hearing on this proposed measure, Mr. President. And just to make it clear, the President is open-minded, and the Secretary has aired her views. And what is your Bisaya word?
Gikan sa masa.
Gikan sa masa, meaning from the people to the people. Oh,
So
yun.
here, the people
So
we talked with were saying, no, don't lower it.
They consulted, so they're consultative. They consulted child rights advocates, social workers, people in the field.
So
And
is that the reason why we seem to have not heard any more from the president about that proposal?
No, we don't want to grab credit for that. The secretary says no, it may not be solely due to her views, but what she's saying is that as a member of the cabinet, she consults with people and brings the people's views to the president. And he listens.
Still the president who will decide.
It's still the president who will decide. But
And I
that is-
appreciate the efforts of
that is
the secretary.
her personal view. That is the view of most of them in the institution. This is the view of the sponsor. And once it is here on the floor, I will oppose that measure.
Now, has JJWC undertaken also initiatives to conduct studies or look into the extent of the implementation of the Pangilinan law?
That's what
Is there an assessment as to
still by September.
how much protection CICLs are really getting from the faithful implementation of the law? Has there been a study
Yes.
showing empirical data, actual experiences, actual cases where it would seem that the law is not really being implemented properly on the ground? And if there is such a data, if there is such a finding, I suppose part of the study would be what are the root causes or what are the reasons for the non-implementation?
Yes, they did a universal study on diversion and its implications. And the council also conducted last September 15, a meeting and a forum, legislative forum, to orient lower house on the impact of this measure. And they included NGOs, CSOs.
Can the DSWD please share with us that study?
Yes, yes.
We'll appreciate it.
And we should also share this with you, this whole memo, which is very interesting. We could share this. All the reasons why it should not be lowered. Just to summarize, it should not be seen to help reduce crime rates, since adults commit around 98% of crimes, and lowering MACR, putting in children in jail, will not address the issue of criminal syndicates using children. It is anti-poor. It will not teach children responsibility, but will only harm them. And it will require bigger resources among LGUs. There are many reasons, and this memo could be shared with the Senator.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor. Now, the JJWC, also under the Pangilinan law, mandates the establishment of this mechanism called Bahay Pag-asa in each province and highly urbanized city. And it is supposed to provide interventions to reform CICLs. Yes, it is supposed to be funded and managed by LGUs, but I'd like to hear from JJWC as the lead agency with statutory mandate to ensure the implementation of the law, if this Bahay Pag-asa are in place in every province and highly urbanized city as mandated under that law, because it's been years after the law was enacted.
35
Yes, there are 35 Bahay Pag-asa all over the country, Mr. President.
out of 80.
So that does not yet correspond to the Bahay Pag-asa per province and per highly urbanized city. What has been done with the non-compliant LGUs?
Mr. President, having been in this chamber for 3 terms, we see that not all laws are followed all of the time, and there's billions and billions of pesos of unfunded laws. And so, if this law is not followed insofar as the creation of Bahay Pag-asas in every LGU, if you are to look at other non-implementation and non-funding of laws, you will feel frustrated.
Can we consider in our preparations for our budget, maybe not necessarily for next year, but in succeeding years, that we also try to focus in funding these important initiatives And as JJWC is the lead agency, it is strongly
Yes.
suggested that it examines and perhaps proposes mechanisms to hold accountable non-compliant LGUs.
We take note of that, and perhaps in the preparation of their NEP of 2018, they can include that. And instead of lowering the age, there are mechanisms to improve the law, and that would be the hiring of social workers and psychologists in local governments, and for LGUs to develop and to implement comprehensive juvenile intervention groups focused on prevention.
And those logistical requirements need to be incorporated in the JJWC budget, not yet included in the proposed budget, in the GAB, because I note that the budget for JJWC is 85.5. So would that cover already those activities mentioned?
Mr. President, the capital outlay for the establishment of Pag-asa houses in compliance with the law can be done in 2018. However, the activities or interventions I mentioned don't have to wait till tomorrow. In fact, they should have been done from the time
Yes.
the law was enacted, because these are bringing in psychologists, capacity building, prevention, intervention. All of these can be done with LGUs and the social worker assigned in that area.
And that is supposed to have been factored in already in the budget. Is it? I just want, Madam Sponsor, I just want to make sure that, because these activities are really very worthwhile
Psychosocial
and
activities. Yes.
needed. But the problem is, have the concerned unit of the DSWD really took into consideration those proposed or intended activities?
I believe that we need to take care of our children and teen-aged citizens better. We need to see more proactive inclusivity of really caring for them, taking into consideration their psychosocial needs and mental health, psychosocial needs, so that we prevent them from falling prey to criminal syndicates. And I don't think this is a budgetary consideration. This is really part of our duty as citizens of our country. And I would like to think that other agencies like Mama Masid of DILG, Masa Masid, can converge with DSWD to prevent crime in the anti-drug war campaign. A program to take care of our children and teen-aged kids can be done for psychosocial interventions.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor. Now, on a few items in the GAB. First is on the assistance to victims of disasters and natural calamities. Indicated here are amounts corresponding to the allocations for the NCR and the central office. And I note that the allocation for the central office under that item, assistance to victims of disasters and natural calamities, is 1.3 billion. Now, I know that the bulk of the budget for next year, insofar as calamities, natural disasters are concerned, have really been transferred to NDRIM. But of course, all these years, for the past years, DSW is supposed to be at the forefront, is the forefront lead agency in rendering assistance to victims of disasters and natural calamities. My first question, Madam Sponsor, is that this 1,389,203,000 allocation to central office under that item, assistance to victims of disasters and natural calamities, I would assume that this is much lesser than the budgetary allocations under the same item compared to previous years, like, for example, the preceding year, 2016. Is that correct, Madam Sponsor? Because this is one of the things that I find rather I'm not sure if I totally agree that we would be slushing a very significant portion of this amount from DSWD, simply because the whole governmental task insofar as calamities and disasters are concerned have been recognized to be with NDRMC. I don't think also DSWD as an institution wanted that.
There's no reduction, and I made sure there's no reduction. It's just that the one fund concept of Secretary Jokno, it's still in the NDRIM, and an amount is earmarked for agencies who are allowed to have QRF, and it can be drawn anytime that the SWD needs it.
So if there is such a portion in the NDRIM fund under QRF supposed to be allocated also, or meant to be allocated to DSWD in due time, what is this for? The 1.3 billion, which appears to be lump sum,
This is for-
allocated to central office.
Yes.
I just want to
This is-
understand.
This is for cash for work in areas which are vulnerable. For example, Typhoon Lawin in Isabela, in the Cordilleras. People need funding assistance right away. So cash for work will be given. And this 1.3 could be broken down into welfare goods expenses, traveling expenses for the SWD staff, admin support, and the MOE would be cash for work in disaster-prone areas that have been hit by calamities.
So
natural
understandably, there could not be any regional or local allocations at this point
We cannot
for this particular item, because again, this is supposed to be assistance to victims of disasters, wherever those victims would be when the natural calamity
Yes,
occurs. So moving on, Madam Sponsor, the next item right after that talks about protective services for individuals and families in difficult circumstances. And again, I see this is page, ano page ito?
Give me the cue card.
May page ba ito?
Yun na yan. Nasaan na si Pa? Sabi yung question. Wala pang tanong eh. Ito na. Ito.
Page 260, volume. Page 260 of the GAB. It's either volume 1A or 1B, line 41. Protective services for individuals and families in difficult circumstances. So there are again lump sum allocations here for NCR and also for central office. I also would want just to understand why it is not possible at this point to show or come up with local or regional allocations.
We have a breakdown already. Actually,
There's a breakdown.
here, this is the one.
There's a breakdown, Mr. President, of the protective services by region. It's actually here, and this by kind of protective services and by region. Educational, medical, transport, burial, food assistance, and non-food. So I have here from central office to and all the regions. And this is not a lump sum, Mr. President. It is identified here.
For the benefit of the uninitiated, what exactly are protective services for individuals and families in difficult circumstances? What are families, individuals, in difficult circumstances as compared to those in areas struck by natural calamities and disasters?
Yes, Mr. President, protective services would not be necessarily the victims of calamities. This is a broader picture of those in need of burial assistance, of those in need of educational assistance, of those in need of medical assistance, of those in need of food assistance and other non-food and transportation. You know, I'm sure when you go out of this hall, someone can go near you and say, pamasahe lang po, pauwi sa Bicol. Kung tatanungin natin, paano kayo nakarating dito? Hihingi kayong pamasahe pa uwi. So, imbis po na tayo ang magpaluwal at magbigay sa kanila, meron namang programa ang DSWD. Imumungkahi ko, balik probinsya na programa. Sana nga, Mr. President, ay meron na lang nakapirmi ditong DSWD para lahat i-direct na lang namin. Hindi, totoo. Totoo. Yun ang gusto ni Senator Lacson, tama naman. Sa baba, may building doon, may branch kayo dito, para wag na mag-download sa amin. Tapos yung admin staff pa namin, isa-isa endorsement letter, pupunta na naman, kawawa rin naman yung taong nagbiyahe dito para lang makita si Senator De Lima, uuwi rin naman ng Bicol. Magtayo na kayo ng inyong tanggapan dyan.
Sama sa budget.
Isama sa budget, yes. No, really. Desk.
Every one of
Hindi
us,
naman Okay,
all 24 senators actually
Hindi naman po
experienced that.
kailangan ng opisina, desk lang nga, sabi ni Senator Lacson. Para yung hihingi ng micro-enterprise development, SLP, ayan. Yung magpapalibing, ayan. Yung kailangan ng transportation, ayan. Hindi na hihingin si Senator Villar ng pabahay. O sige, yung head ng accounts ng Senado, si Senator Lacson, ay tumutungo. Sige, we will assign the head of accounts to coordinate. Ha? Tumatungo. Oh, ano man yun? Is nodding. Okay. And the Senate President will agree that may accounts naman kayo dyan to set up a decent office for DSWD, a desk, and you will not discriminate kung majority or minority ang senator. Let's just help the people, regardless of who they approach.
Okay
so they
na,
don't
okay
have
po
to
yan.
line up in our offices. So we owe it to the interventions of Senator De Lima that this desk will be created. Desks.
Okay na okay po yan. Kailangan lang natin medyo i-define ng husto, ng klarado, yung in difficult circumstances. Because this is such a very generic term. Difficult
Lahat naman in
circumstances.
difficult eh.
Everybody can claim. Anyone who would seek assistance can always claim that
Alam
they
naman
are
ho
in
natin
difficult
siguro.
circumstances.
Yes. There are requirements.
Meron ho ba tayong pwedeng
Okay, not everybody will answer together, okay? So, very clearly, we know who are indigent. We know who are in need, and there's a social worker who assesses the applicant for this program of protective services. I will repeat, educational, hindi naman basta bibigyan ng 10,000, papakita ka ng may taong naka-enroll, hindi makapagbayad, i-assess naman yan. Medical, magpapakita ng reseta, humihingi ng gamot, or dapat i-confine sa ospital. Transportasyon, hindi ko lang kung papatunay, paano ka nakarating dito, paano ka makakabalik. O, food and non-food. So we can give you these details. Yan.
kung ganan ho ka-generic yung pag-aano natin ng difficult circumstances, sa tingin ko po, itong allocation na to, kulang to.
Oh, yun. So, I will agree to your...
Pwede ho ba kayong magpadagdag? Pwede ho ba kayong...
Pwede. Magkano ba ang total?
Magkano ba ang pwede? So, per the GAB, anong volume ito uli? It's on page 260.
Mr. President, it's been decided that the Senate will allocate a desk as a satellite office of the DSWD for the Protective Services Program with no need for augmentation of their budget. They will earmark it from their present program because the HOR does it and refers all since they are neighbors in Quezon City. And so all of those coming to our respective offices will be sent to the DSWD Protective Services Desk, which Senator Lacson is assigned to do as chairman of the accounts. It will be a decent air-conditioned room with computers, CCTV, and an admin staff of the Senate will join the DSWD.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
There
you.
is a public assistance center there,
Yes,
which can fit into this
Sure.
administrative work.
you're correct. The
requirement.
Public Assistance Center will now be the satellite office of the DSWD, and no allocation from the Senate will, or senators' personal expenses, but it will be DSWD satellite office for the needs, whether burial, educational, transportation, food, etc. Okay.
Thank you.
Medical.
One last item po, yung social pension for indigent senior citizens. Now, there are regional allocations for this, but there are also lump sum appropriations for both NCR and central office. So may we know again the justification for a separate lump sum item for the central office in addition to the regional allocations for this particular item, social pension for indigent senior citizens. So what are the budgetary requirements in the central office that could justify a separate allocation?
Yes, Mr. President, it's not a lump sum. I have here again the list per region, including NCR, and everything is here. And whatever is lodged in the office of the Secretary, in the central office, is just a standby fund for augmentation for the regions.
Thank you. That's all, Madam
Thank you.
Madam Sponsor.
Thank you very much. Because of your interpellations, we're able to have the satellite office for protective services.